Hey, and welcome to Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. I am your host, Alan J. Campbell, aka the Batman.
Y'all gotta pardon me tonight.
Here at the clock
like a
hour.
superhero up in here.
Look here, we are going to get in. I'm gonna just jump into a couple of things right now, and to start off with, I think the title, and it's kind of classical. The title of tonight's show is called Django. That's DJANGO. The D is silent. Now, for those who are not familiar with the film Django, reason why I chose that, because there's a few things that's going on right now that is indicative of us as people. And the funny part about it is that when I was going over some things and going over some notes, and if you're not familiar with the film, watch it. It is indicative of what we are and who we are and the direction that we are going in as a people and as a country. Okay. And I say that because when you look at the film, and if you haven't seen it, you need to watch it, because there's a lot of truth. There's a lot of truth in it. There's some humorous points, but it's true. It's an old saying that it's not racist if it's true. When we hear the comment about black people having large lips, well, it's just not a racist statement. It's true. A lot of us have those full, moist, soft lips. So is it racist? No, it's not. It's a true statement. But in the film, there's a gentleman that it kind of centers around. His name is one of the characters is called Calvin Candy. And I don't want to give too much away of the film if you haven't seen it. But the United States is indicative of the nature of Calvin Candy. Along with Calvin Candy, there's another character by the name of Stephen, who is the proverbial, the quintessential house nigga. He emboldens that. He just the way he conducts himself is indicative of how some of us act and operate today. Absolutely. I mean, just to no avail. Now, I'm a sidetrack for a minute. Now, right now we got a lot going on here in the city of Chicago. One of them is being, and this kind of ties into why I said the show Django. Right now, we are the city of Chicago is embroiled in a very highly contested mayoral race, a very contentious case involving a Chicago police officer, Jason Van Dyke, and who is accused of shooting and killing Laquan McDonald. Now, I talked about some of this on last week's show, because I watched the trial. I listened to it, and I'm pretty much a legal buff. I want to know the ins and outs. But the thing about that is that we as a people, we have to understand how this system actually works, and how and when it works, is it beneficial to us? Now, just to go to one, let's start off with the mayoral race. Now, once again, this is us, and there are 5 blacks in this race that are running in the race. And so a few of them I can name right offhand. You got Tony Preckwinkle, you got Dorothy Brown, Jamal Green, Doc Walls, and Willie Wilson, and I believe there's another gentleman that's also running. He's black. Now, see, once again, and when you open up when you look at the list of names that are actually running, it's close to 15 people running for one office. 15 people. Now, here's the thing that is subject to happen. See, when this starts to filter out, and those who are going to survive this, what's going to happen? You're going to get certain individuals who are going to fall by the wayside, or who are going to fall out of the race, but they're going to put their support behind a particular candidate. You got I believe Chewy Garcia, he's running, who is Hispanic, but he has the Hispanic community behind him. And there's a few other individuals that are running. It's another gentleman another Hispanic that's considering running. He hasn't formally announced it yet. But here's the thing, what I'm saying is that this is the Hispanic community getting together behind one individual. You got a couple of white people that are running. And when that starts to filter, you're going to see certain people get behind them. Now, if we were smart, and I say that rhetorically, if we were smart, seeing that the number of people that you have running that are black, and I'm going to repeat those, and I want you to think about those names when you're heading to the poll, because I'm gonna be truthfully, be truthfully honest. You know, after after I really begin to understand how the voting process really works, unfortunately, I don't vote. No, let me rephrase that. I won't say unfortunately. No, I don't vote because it is corrupt upon corruption. It's built upon corruption. And and I'll get into that later. But what we have here, as I said, we have 5 to 6 blacks that are running for one office. And I've said this once before. This is us not thinking. This is us thinking about ourselves and not thinking about others, and trying to overtake the powers that be. Now, going back to a conversation that was had in the film Django, the overseer, the master of this plantation, Calvin Candy, he was sitting around talking with other individuals while they were sitting around and they were sitting at dinner, and they were talking about various things. And he raised a very see this and this is Quentin Tarantino, who is the director, who is very good at pointing out certain things in different aspects of different aspects, and particularly in black in the as far as blacks are concerned. Now, as they were having a conversation, the character Calvin Candy, Stephen, Django, and King Schultz were all sitting at the table. And as he was having a conversation, and Calvin Candy stated, he says, I I can't understand. He couldn't wrap his head around one particular concept. He said that I have all of these slaves. There's so many of them, and he referenced the area that he has in excess of 250 to 300 slaves on his property. And he says, I have all these, and I wonder, when I lay down at night and go to sleep, and then I get up in the morning, I wonder what stops them. And he paused, and he said, because there's only a few of us, and he was referencing himself, his wife, and the overseers. And he goes on to say, uh, there's so many of them. Why don't they just kill us? Now, that was a very good point. Very good point. Because if you think about this for a moment and you ask yourself this question, the slave or the slaves that any property owner or or plantation owner had, his slaves outnumbered the men, the people, we outnumbered the white people on the plantation. We outnumbered them. But see, this goes back to the mentality of us accepting what's being told to us and believing it instead of actually looking at it for ourselves. Now, to move over to the part about the mayoral race, you have enough black candidates to where if they were all thinking, instead, if they were thinking about how to win and take back the city, opposed to I want to be the one sitting in that chair on the 5th floor of City Hall. And see, that's a selfish way of thinking. If they all thought thinking about, well, wait a minute, it's enough of us to overtake them. What you would do, in my plan is very simple, is you find the most suitable candidate, or you pick one of the 5 or 6 that's going to be the face of the black community. Then after you pick that candidate, you all I remember the other one, Lori Lightfoot. So that gives me my 6 or 7. So yeah, so I'm gonna go through those names. So remember these names: Lori Lightfoot, Lori Lightfoot, uh, uh, who was the head of the now defunct IPRA, which is now the Police Accountability. She was head of that. You have Dorothy Brown, who was the Cook County clerk. You have Tony Prickwinkle, who is the county board president. Jamal Green, activist. Um, Doc Walls, another activist, and you have Willie Wilson, who is a millionaire. Now, think about this for a minute, people. Think about this for a minute. And before I get too far, if you want to join in on this conversation, this discussion, the lines are open. Give me a call here at the station at 708-223-8953. That's 708-223-8953 to join in this conversation, to join in the show called Django. The D is silent. Anyway, my plan is very simple. You find you pick you all 5 of these and all 6 of these individuals or 7 should all get together like white people do, get together like the Hispanics do, and they decide to pick a candidate, and then everyone backs that candidate. Here's what you have: you pick a face, you pick a new face, a fresh face, someone, an idealistic individual. You put them out front. Then you got the money. There's several candidates who are in the race right now that have the money, such as a Willie Wilson, who has the money. Then what you do is that everybody. Then what you do is you begin to overwhelm these other 2 ethnic groups. You overwhelm them with everything that you have. You show them the west side and the south side, and then you go to the north side and show them the difference, the disparaging that is happening. This is once again, this is us not thinking or not looking at the bigger picture. The bigger picture. And going back to the part about Django's, when he made that comment, there is enough. He made it clear it's enough of them to where they could overtake this plantation and kill us all. Now, if you think back, now if you think for a moment, and you take this under consideration to where, yeah, there was enough. I'm gonna be totally honest. Me, I couldn't have been a slave. I could not have been a slave. I'd have been the slave with the double shackles and half a foot, no fingers, probably one eye, no, and head bald and everything. But I just wasn't going. I just was not. I would have not been the one. Point blank. Period. But the downside is that if enough of us, and the thing is that when it's enough of us to decide to come up with a plan, you always got one circus clown, one sea donkey that's got to tell everybody, or they don't agree with it. That's the pervert. That there is your house nigga. And in Django, the character Stephen was the typical house nigga. But his everything that the master said, he went along with, even if it wasn't true, even if it wasn't in the best interest, he went along with it. And not only that, but he told on other blacks. And unfortunately, this is a lot of us right now when we continue to support certain things that we know that are not beneficial, such as the Democratic Party. It is not beneficial. Going back to slavery, the movie Django, if majority of the Southerners, if you do your history and understand the term when they say a Southern Democrat, these were the ones that wanted to keep you in chains. They wanted to that keep you in chains, take your dignity away from you, and most of us and separate us as families. This is what they do. You name me one thing a Democrat has ever done for you that you benefited from. Now, I know some people will say, and we don't want to get too far off into that, but to the portion of politics. But I know some people out there saying, well, what have the Republicans have done? Well, here's the thing: it's not about what the Republicans have done. You know for a fact what the Democrats have done or have not done. You know that for a fact. These are the same people who are pushing immigration, but at the same time, who are pushing out certain things for that were specifically designed for blacks. You don't hear any of your civic leaders, you don't hear any of your ministers coming to the defense and saying there has to be things have to change. We have to stop this crab in a barrel crab in a barrel mentality. It has to change. Nothing if there's no change, nothing changes. Point blank period. Point blank period. Now moving, now moving away. Now we're going to the other topic of the situation with involving Jason Van Dyke, the Chicago police officer that is on trial for murder. Okay. Last week, the prosecution laid out their case, and I was a little surprised that the prosecution rests after 5 days of testimony. I was um a little surprised, but going looking at all the evidence, looking at and listening to all the testimony, and I believe they feel that they've laid out their case to where it seems that the evidence is irrefutable, and it's kind of difficult to say it didn't happen. Now, all of us have seen the tape of the shooting tape of Laquan McDonald. We've all seen the tape. Okay, if you haven't seen the tape, you've been living under a rock for the last 4 or 5 years. Now, the defense began their arguments today. Now, what has happened now? It's so funny. Now, Jesse Jackson was at one of the hearings, which Jesse Jackson is like a ghost. He's here and there, and you don't see him anymore. But what's happening now is that now the crowds of protesters are starting to build up out in front of the Cook County Courthouse. It's starting to build up. There are protesters there that are in support of the black community. They're in support of Laquan McDonald. But then on the flip side, there are those that are there in support of Jason Van Dyke. Now, what they're doing, and listening to the testimony today, and what the defense is doing, is that they're trying to, as any procedural defense would do when you're on trial, basically on for life. It doesn't, whether you're on trial for a drug conviction, a sexual assault, a murder, robbery, or whatever, that you're going to be demonized regardless. And so what happens here, and this is the flip side, the defense is working very, very hard to demonize Laquan McDonald. The first thing they want to say is that he didn't comply. Okay. Then the second thing is that they said when they did the toxicology, and when that came back, he had traces. Key word. Now remember, he had traces of PCP in his system. But not only did he have that, but he had things in his system, two of which were prescribed medications. One was an antidepressant, and another medication was an antipsychotic medication. Now, we could say that all of the combination, this cocktail of drugs obviously had an effect on his judgment. But at the same time, this individual had been diagnosed as an individual who may have been suffering from schizophrenia, which is why a person is on medications such as antipsychotic medication. Now, if you're adding an illicit drug to that mix, that's going to kind of throw things off. But the defense is trying its best to demonize this 17-year-old young man, to say that he was a potential threat, which made which and which at this point Jason Van Dyke was justified in shooting and killing him 16 times. No, there's no justification for that. Period. Point blank. Period. You're not shooting a wild animal. You're not on a safari now. And I'm going to go there for a moment. Sometimes police officers look at this as a safari. The big game, out there hunting big game, and the game is the black male. That's the game. You are the game. And he's riding around on his buckboard or his or whatever he is, and his high powered rifle, and he's looking to shoot and bring down the biggest game he possibly can find. And when you look at this and the mentality of how they interact, how the police community interacts with the black community, that's exactly what it appears. Here it is. You have this guy. This is Hillbilly Bob showing up on a safari, and he jumps out of the truck, and you have this 2,000-pound rhino coming right at you. Now everyone else is pretty much cool with it. They're just getting out of the way, letting this beast have its way. This guy gets out and he opens up with an elephant gun, killing it. And that's exactly what people are seeing. And if you don't see it that way, or you don't see it that way, then there's something wrong. Something really, really wrong. But going back to the slave mentality of how we're treated, this is how they view us. Django, the D is silent. This is how we are viewed. We are viewed as animals that are fit to be slaughtered. Keyword: animals fit to be slaughtered. The sad part about it, that the game warden, he has no problem with that. Kill as many as you possibly can, and get your trophies. And get your trophies. This is the uproar right now. This is the direction that we're going. The United States is the proverbial candy land, where they're so used and accustomed to doing what they want to do that when someone says no, stop, everybody loses their mind. Oh, okay. Oh, wait, what? We can't do this anymore? No. So they're anticipating this case possibly wrapping up by week's end. I'm anticipating. I was a little shocked that the defense actually rested. Actually, they kind of ended their day relatively early. Now that doesn't mean that they're resting. It's just that they ran out of witnesses to depose today. So it continues, and it continues, and it's going to continue tomorrow. A lot of people are looking at this case. They are looking at this very, very closely. They are scrutinizing this case. For the special prosecutor who is trying the case, this is big for him. For the two attorneys that represent Van Dyke, this is big for them. There's a lot at stake. At the end of the day, what it's going to boil down to, it's not going to boil down to a black man being killed by a white man, or a white man murdering another black man. It's not going to boil down to that. It's not going to come down to the evidence that the state presented, or the evidence that the defense is presenting. It's not going to come down to that. It's not going to even come down to the 12. It's going to come down to the 12 people sitting in that box and who told the best story. That's really what it is. That is how the judicial system really works. That is how it works. It boils down to Who told the best story? Whose story is more believable? Is it the state or is it the defense? Who told the best story? And who's more believable? It's not going to come down to expert testimony or video. It's not. It's going to who. What are they going to believe? Who told the best story? This is what it boils down to. In the event, and it's in the event. It's and right now, the city of Chicago, the fire department, uh, CPD, they're all bracing for when this does go to the jury and the subsequent verdict. Now, make no mistake, if they come back with a acquittal or a hung jury, expect the city to burn. Make no mistake, expect this city to burn. Make no mistake about that. But at the same time, here's the thing that also has to happen. The city of Chicago has to have a sacrificial lamb. They got to have a scapegoat because certain politicians have actually distanced themselves from this case, such as Eddie Johnson, such as Rahm Emanuel. They distance themselves from this case because here's the thing. There's an old saying, it's not, it boils down to what did and when did you know it? Listening to one of the expert witnesses during their testimony today, she stated that she didn't perform the autopsy. She's going off the notes. She's going off of what someone else said. But if you listen closely to these people's testimony, it is so convoluted, and a lot of them, the way they handled the medical report is absolutely a travesty, because once again it boils down to this, what it a police this was a police officer killing another nigger. So we're not going to do the autopsy the way we would normally do it for an individual. We're not going to do the toxicology the way we do it. We're going to hurry up. We're going to gut this person like a fish. We're going to get what we can get. We're going to zip him back up and ship him and put him in the bag and get him back to his mama. And hopefully they can put him back together, because it's not our job. What happened now, because of the sloppiness and the handling of this, and it's going to come down, it's really they're really trying to piece this back together about the medical report and the autopsy and how these things were done, is that now it's all over the place and so convoluted. And they're going off notes from this person. They're going off notes from this person, but nobody sat there and compared notes. And I tell you why they didn't compare notes: because they never anticipated this case, this one particular case, reaching the media firestorm the way it is reached. So now people are having to backtrack and say, oh my goodness, look at this, look at this, look at this. In her testimony, she stated, well, she never did, and she never took samples of certain tissues. Well, she goes on, well, it really wasn't necessary. But one of your pathologists ruled his death a homicide. Keyword: cause of death, multiple gunshot wounds. I'm listing this as a homicide. When you have an individual when the medical examiner lists them as homicide, the aspect of how you're doing the autopsy changes, because now the body is evidence. Any and everything that concerning that body is evidence, bringing down to what they call trace samples. That's hair, fingernails, fluid from the body, fluid from the eyes. Um, uh, 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 when you're doing the internal exam, and I don't want to get too far into that because I don't want people to get lost or get hung up on that. But The bottom line is that they never anticipated this case going this far and coming to trial and have people having to justify their answers or justify why they didn't do something when it's normal procedure to do. Once again, this goes back to this was a black boy who had who nobody who they treated as if he was a bag of garbage. No one ever anticipated this video ever surfacing. And when it surfaced, when this happened October 20th, 2014, and when the video surfaced a year later, people began to get scared. They got scared, and now they're trying to figure out what to do. When this expert witness testified, she's going over her notes and she's looking at it. Some of her own notes, if you wrote a note, how are you confused on what you wrote? Because you didn't write it, or you wrote it in such a way till you never went back to double check that. This case is very important, in this for the city. Well, let me rephrase that. It's very important for other people. It's very important that should they get a conviction, and here's how this can go too. Two things can happen. They can convict them on first degree murder. Now, first degree murder, there's certain elements that have to go into it, or just simple murder. Or it can go down to reckless homicide. It can go even to manslaughter. But the thing is this: the state knows that they have to get a conviction. They have to do whatever they have to do to get a conviction, because there's no way that they can constantly say that they can walk away and let this guy walk away. They can't say that. But we're going to take us a little break right here because we got to pay some bills around here on iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. Hey, if you are hungry like I am right about now, and they'll probably be closed by the time I leave, check out Captain Hook's. 2 locations in Chicago and 1 in the suburbs. 85th and Cottage Grove, 103rd and King Drive, both in Chicago. And the location in Markham, which is 15922 South Kedzie in Markham. Check out Captain Hook's Fish, Chicken, Shrimp. Nubian Beauty of Hair. Check out their website, luxuryhairdirect.com/Nubian4. Remember, put the dot on the end of that 4. We will be back here on the Chronicles of Rohn.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.
These niggas think it ain't crazy out here. Net bounce. Y'all gotta pardon me tonight. I feel like a superhero up in here. When it's spit, they gotta hit him, gotta get him like new shit. They call me Batman, cause the black mask is on my face. Gun up on my waist, booted and suited in them black case. I'm looking for some hood rats that I take to the back cave. Y'all lame like blank man, while I'm steady serving them like pistol on my utility belt. Like, yeah, I keep my identity to myself. Like, you don't want me to grab that thing from the shelf. Like, I call them robbing, cause that's my only help, right? Okay. Girls hit my bat signal when they know that I'm coming. I say I ain't here for nothing, now give me that cat woman. That's when we started stomach pumping. Somebody had started thumping. She jumped up and caught her breath like, did you hear something? As soon as I get near to y'all, you want me to get into y'all. I ain't trying to tease them, play with your mind like the Riddler. Girl, I'm really feeling you, but you're acting two-faced. Her body smell fresh, but her breath needs some toothpaste. Nah, I ain't even gonna play with her, I'm gonna give it to her all the way straight. Wait, she She said, quit playing. What you think I'm a joker? About a money freaking. By the end of the night, it's over. This girl will poison ivy, but I'ma have to give her a chance. Cause this a one night stand, but I'm all have bigger plans. Jump from top to roof like through the window like Batman, you cool, right? Hit the floor, then I duck roll, shoot like a uppercut. That'll leave him sack or two, right? Ha. Look, this what I told her. Girl, I break backs, bang. She hit me on the dark night for a late stain. By the end of the night, I don't remember her name. My alias is Alias, not Bruce Wayne. She say she got a man and he'll be home soon for dinner. And by that time, I need to be out like a ninja. She say his heart's cold like a Chicago winter. His friends call him Freeze, but I just call him Victor. And I'm like, shh. Then she say he must get home a little quicker. I'm like, damn, where's the window? And pass me all my B-loans. Do yourself a favor, chick. Lose all my info. Down the fire escape to the black mobile. My cologne in the air. Soon as he knew that I was there, he screamed. Watch me get up out that jam like I make that thing go blam like all the women like damn that's cause they know that's who I am. Okay. The end.
Hey, and we're back here at iHeart Intellectual Radio, the Chronicles of Rohn. Hey, we were when we left, we were discussing, we were going into a little bit of the Van Dyke case, but I don't want to get too far into that and into the particulars. But what I do recommend you do if you want to know more about this case and following this case, if you don't have anything during the course of the day, or just if you got a DVR or whatever, whoever your cable company is or satellite, check it out. For Comcast watchers, or for Comcast customers, I should say, check it out 10 o'clock tomorrow morning on, I think the channel is 352. It's CLTV, but it's 352. And it's, as they say, gavel to gavel, and be aware that this is live television. So you will be seeing some of the evidence, which, i.e., autopsy photos. And if this is not your cup of tea, viewer discretion is advised, because they will be doing that. Okay. Now we're going to switch gears right quick to go into two other topics right now. I want to go into the thing that's happening right now for two people. There is a Supreme Court Justice nominee, Kavanaugh, who is under fire for allegedly assaulting two women, one of which was in high school, which was 40 years ago, and another woman who was in Yale, which was 30 years ago. Now, this man has been a judge forever and a day. That's one part. Now, let's kick it over to the situation that's going on in Pennsylvania with Bill Cosby. Now, Bill Cosby, and I'm going to go right into that. Right now, Bill Cosby is looking at spending the rest of his life, possibly, this man is 81 years old, in prison. The prosecution wants to classify him as a deviant, a sexually dangerous person. Okay, let's get into that. Let's swing into that right quick. Okay. The women that allege this, and I say alleged, but I know some people say, well, he was convicted. Well, we got to understand something. Just because you were convicted, does that mean you really did it? You took it to you took it to trial and you lost. But as I said, it's not about the evidence. It's not about the state. It's not about the defense. It's about which story was believable. And apparently, you had a lot of people who believed that Bill Cosby did what he did. Now, it didn't help also Bill. It didn't help him to have admitted that he did give a woman quaaludes. It didn't help. He did that in a deposition. What bothers me is And ladies, make no mistake. I am a. It's not the fact that I'm an advocate, but I don't condone the violence towards women. I don't condone that. That's not what I believe in. It's not what I stand for. That's not what I'm saying. But what I don't condone or believe in is that something happened to you and you wait 40 years after this person has possibly come into um, a position of power or a status. His status has changed to where he is of great stature, and then you wait 35 years to say he sexually assaulted me. If you didn't tell somebody when it happened, keep it to yourself. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. If you didn't tell somebody, and some people say, well, oh, I may have felt ashamed, I might have done this and may have done that. If you didn't tell somebody when it was happening, you should have. These women, and apparently there's 60 plus women who said Bill Cosby did this. Now, Bill Cosby is at his sentencing hearing. The prosecution is asking for 15. They're asking for 15 to 25. 15, that's essentially a life sentence, but he can get probation. Now, what will happen is that if he gets probation, he'll get probation. He'll be on house arrest, and he will have to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. Which is he's only 81 years old. He's got to go down to the police station, and he's got to sit in there while he's got to sign his name and blah 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 blah. All of this stuff, he's got to do that. Now, the other part that's a little disturbing is that at some point his wife, now Bill Cosby is married, and at some point or another, you have to say that if it was his wife Camille complicit. It goes back to what I said. What did she know, and when did she know it? What did she know, and when did she know it? It's not it's what's most troubling, and a lot of this happened when we got the Me Too and all this thing. And just another a little note about the Me Too. The woman who actually started this Me Too hashtag was it hashtag Me Too or whatever it is. This woman herself, now she herself, not only was she a victim of something, but she also was the perpetrator of the very same thing. Her 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 story finally, her thing came out. A young man said that he was sexually assaulted by her, the same person who started this. See, this particular thing is not gonna it's not going to turn out like people think it is. It really isn't. Now, right now, they're still, they're going into day two with Bill Cosby in the sentencing phase. Now, his attorneys are asking, say, hey, let's take into consideration that this man is legally blind. He's 81 years old, legally blind. He has other health issues. Sending him to a prison is not going to be beneficial. And then when you got these women who all did the interview and they're yelling, woo, 30 years of justice, get out of here. 30 years of get out of here. You held that in for 30, 40 years. If you wanted justice, you should have gotten it when it first happened. You just don't. You just don't. Now, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this guy Kavanaugh, who is who is a, U.S. district judge, who's been nominated to be a Supreme Court justice. Now, this goes into the part of where I said about how dirty the Democrats can be, and we have to. And I say that with the strongest of passion about how dirty they are playing and how dirty they can be. So, with that being said, this woman, her name is Ann Ford out of California. She's a professor out of California. You wait 40 years to bring this up. Then just days ago, there's another woman. Now, the first woman the first woman, Ann Ford, said that this happened at a party in high school when Kavanaugh, her, and another young man were all together, and the story was that Kavanaugh slid his hand under her blouse. Okay, that was high school 35, 40 years ago. Really? Okay, so let's fast forward now. Just days ago, we had another woman that come forward and says Kavanaugh. They were here. We go again. This is the Democrats. Her and Kavanaugh were at a party, and Kavanaugh exposed himself, and forced her to touch him. Yeah. Okay. You know what? We're gonna have to really backtrack on that one. Really, they're trying to really smear, and it's one thing to go after an individual, but when you start to go after a man and knowing that this guy or this individual, whether he's a Kavanaugh, whether he's a Cosby, to wait this long and to go after someone for something that you should have said something long time ago, and let me sidebar for a moment. And I know that if this happened to someone, yes, this can be a traumatic experience. I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that. But at some point or another, you have to you have to develop some closure, or speak out. Speak out when this happened. It doesn't matter whether you're believed or not. If you speak out and you're getting out in front of this thing to where people are knowing, hey, this what happened. This person did this to me, so it can be handled and rectified. That's what you do. You don't wait 40 years till this person becomes a president, or he becomes a judge, or becomes a celebrity. You don't wait that long to do something like that. You catch them before it happens. You just don't do that. So Kavanaugh has come out and he's denied this ever happening. He's denied even ever knowing one of the women. One of the women. But you wait. Now let's talk about the woman at Yale. Now, if you are at Yale, which is an Ivy League school, and something like this happened, first thing she should have done was going to the dean. Let the dean know. Then the school would take action. But nothing happened. Is there a report? Did she report this to? Did she report this to the school? Did she report this to the dean? Did she report this to the public safety officer? Is there any evidence, any record, other than her saying he did this to collaborate her story? Is there? The same thing with Ford. Now, the downside with Ford is that Kavanaugh has people who have supported him and saying, no, this didn't happen. This didn't happen. We were at a party, but that didn't happen. A lot of things people have to take into consideration too. If this had have happened, this guy would have been derailed long time ago. But this guy he's been a U.S. district judge for quite a few years. Quite a few years. Now, let's put these assaults aside, and let's talk about the real masters, the real spinsters behind this. It is the Democratic Party. It is the Democrats. The Democrats are trying to find any kind of way to derail this guy's nomination for Supreme Court justice, because what they wanted to do was say, hey, let's wait till after the midterm elections, and then we'll talk about we'll talk about putting a justice in place. But this is the Democrats. The Republicans say, no, we're not going to wait. We're not going to do this. We're going to get this guy in, and we're going to do what we need to do. That's what we're going to do. But this, once again, is the Democrats working against you and me. The Democrats are self-serving entity. Excuse me. Self-serving entity, and they will do and say anything to achieve that goal. The Democratic Party will destroy themselves just to destroy you. And that's what they're subsequently doing. And the unfortunate part is that some of us are falling for this hook, line, and sinker. We have to look, we have to open our eyes and come and not be the proverbial house nigga. Django. DJANGO. The D is silent. We have to come out of this lull, this self-induced, this self-induced medically this coma that we are constantly putting ourselves in. Medically self-induced coma. And that's what we're doing. We are living in a world, we are living in a society where it is the proverbial Django, the proverbial candy land of Django. And like I say, I highly recommend you watch this movie. It gives you a different perspective of what is going on and how they function then and how we are functioning right now. A different perspective. This is where we're at. And if we don't take a few minutes to wake up, because right now a lot of us have children, a lot of us have grandchildren. What are we teaching them? What are we showing them? What are we indoctrinating them with? Instead of a lot of foolishness on BET or a few other stations that escape me right now. Instead of educating them in the way in certain things so that it can be most beneficial as they try to navigate this maelstrom called life. This is what it boils down to. And as long as we continue to function in an environment where we feel that we can't pool our own resources, we can't function without the aid of another entity or nationality, we are in trouble. We've been in trouble. It's when do we say enough is enough? When does that happen? When does that happen? So, but you know what? That's all the time we have here on the Chronicles of Rohn tonight. But I hope you go away with something from tonight's show. And hopefully, when you go away, and if you did go away with something, use it in a positive manner. Educate yourself. The biggest thing that we do, our biggest downfall is that we don't read, we don't educate ourselves, and we accept what is given and told to us as law. We do. So that's it. So to my sponsors who help pay for this show, Captain Hooks, who has just check them out. Just all I can say is check them out, because I'm gonna come in here one day and I'm gonna have me some of that Captain Hook sitting right here, and I'm gonna eat it right there in front of you. Enjoy it. Check out Captain Hooks at 85th and Cottage Grove in Chicago, 100 King Drive in Chicago, and 159th and Kedzie in Markham. Nubian Beauty of Hair. Check out their website at luxuryhairdirect.com/Nubian4. Remember to put the dot on the end of that 4. And in closing, not my monkey, not my circus. See y'all next week.
To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.